Can you guys hear me okay? It seems like my mic disconnected.
Yes.
We hear you.
Okay, my video went away. Well, that's not going to help. Oh, okay. Well, as long as you can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know what. I'm going to have to I can't believe this. I'm in the middle of a live stream and my camera decides to go off. Oh, jeez.
Oh, no.
Oh, no. She'll be back on. But anyway, everyone, thank you for being here, making available time for us. And, on a very special day, very somber day, thousands of Americans lost lives today, 23 years ago. And unfortunately, many more passed away and died in the resulting war on terror over in Afghanistan, and a conflict that's ever going on and still going on to this day. We remember all of the individuals and families whose lives were ruined on this day 23 years ago. And unfortunately, those memories still haunt. It is our generations, or at least mine's. Where were you? The JFK moment and all of that. So, I guess to kickstart everybody, let's go around and everyone say where they're from and where you were at 8:30 on that Tuesday, September 11th in 2001. I'll start with you, Mike, from Stay Off My Lawn.
Yeah, I'm from just north of Atlanta, Georgia, about halfway between Atlanta and Chattanooga. I'm a little older than some of us in here, I guess. I think I was 35 when this happened. I was sitting outside of an Eckerd Drugs waiting for it to open up. I was on afternoon shift, and I was waiting to go in and get a prescription for my son, I think. And I turned on the radio. I put on a radio station I don't normally listen to. It's one here locally. And I turned it on, and all I could think of when I was listening to what was happening was, I don't know if anybody remembers this story from War of the Worlds from 1938. They put on this radio show and everybody bought it. They thought it was actually happening. We were getting invaded by aliens and the whole thing. So that's the only thing I could think of is this is some kind of show. And we had just gotten cell phones a couple of years earlier. So I called my mother, who lived a few miles down the road. It's like, is this really happening? She goes, yes. So on my way down there, and then I think it was the second plane hit the second tower. And so, yeah, it's an overused term, surreal, but that's the perfect term for it. It was very surreal.
Absolutely. Michael Anthony, we'll go to you next. Where were you?
Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. I was. I arrived at my business and, just a day, of course, I'm not thinking anything different than anybody else. And I started to open up and, I got this kind of like vibration of something. And I don't even know why, but I started observing the streets, the roads, the silence that immediately fell amongst America in a way, not just in my neighborhood, but you could look from one end of the highway or road to the other end, and it was like vacancy. And I'm thinking in my head, wow, this just feels strange. Am I like in a Twilight Zone or something? And I really felt that inside me, that type of gut feeling where you don't understand like what's going on. And I decided I'm gonna go across the street, get a coffee. And we had this like local little thing. I ran from my business over to there. And that's when I started to learn what was going on and got my coffee, went back into my office across the street, returned there, turned on the TV. And that's when, the world started to crumble in front of me and in front of all of us in ways. A lot of things were being said, a lot of unknowns were known. Then suddenly police cars were going up and down the main thoroughfare through the Lawrenceville Business District where I was, sirens, so forth. There was even one police car, I think it was a sergeant's car, sergeant lieutenant's police car, and they used to be labeled that way here.
Yeah.
And they were actually saying, please go in your homes. Everything is okay. Please go in your homes. But this is not a drill. Something like that. It truly did happen that way. And of course, we know now we're Gem City in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, throughout the theatrics of everything else we're looking at. So, I guess there was worry about, the plane that was kind of like MIA, if you want to really call it MIA, Shanksville. I mean, who's to say? We really didn't find very many or much of anything as far as plane fragments there. Same was within the Pentagon. But so I'm observing, I'm taking all this in. And that's pretty much how my day went, outside of notifying family, saying, look, I've learned of this. I don't know really what's going on. I know what everybody else knows, pretty much nothing except for what was coming across through the media.
Wow.
Yeah.
Very interesting. Okay, Jenny, we got the two Mikes, their story of where they were on that day. Let's you're next in line. Where were
And
you?
you can
And
hear
what was
me
your day like?
okay?
Yes, we got you now.
Oh,
Mike's
gosh,
working
there's
now. Yeah, it sounds good.
gremlins in here. I don't know what's going on. Oh gosh, I said that was 23 years ago. I was on my way to a dermatologist appointment to have a mole removed. And I remember how beautiful it was. It was blue skies, sunshine. It was a beautiful spring, fall day. And I was sitting there watching. I'm like, am I seeing that right? Is this happening? Yeah, it was a horrible. I mean, my brother was still alive, and we came home and we were all like in shock and glued to the TV, and people were crying. It was horrible. It was a really bad moment in history and a bad moment in my life. As my kids were little. I went and got them out of school. I was one of those crazy parents. I went out. I want my kids out of school because when we heard about the missing plane in Pittsburgh, that was just how far was that from us, Michael? It was Somerset.
Actually, at one point, I think it was about 20 miles north of us, in the zone of our ground zero scenario so I hope I'm right on it. Maybe I'm not accurate because there's so many different missing articles of information that can really back up that tracking, because we have, tracking device. And look, I don't want to go too far here because I'll go into my So, I will just say and end that part about 20 miles north of where you would be located, as well as I, in some manner.
Okay.
Yeah, it was a crazy time. And so who do we want to talk about? I mean, we have someone.
Let's get to Nicole first.
Oh
we'll round
gosh,
out
I didn't.
this.
Okay, I thought she already
Nicole,
went.
go ahead. Where were you? You were probably on the other side of the country, right?
Yeah,
Out here in Southern California. And I was asleep at the time when it happened, and I was at my grandparents' house, at a former house. They sold it now, but she passed on. But yeah, my mom called and she woke me up. I'm like, oh wow! So I ran on the TV and watched it. I don't remember how old I was, but I kind of remember that because we actually knew some people that was involved, and I just can't remember their name, but they went to our church. That was in a plane crash, one of the plane crash.
Yeah.
I try to remember their name, but
it affected everybody. And there's so many conspiracies around it too, Nicole. I mean, you can testify to that, Michael. There's so many different things. And what do you think? What is your version of it? Like, what do you think happened? And then we'll get into Marshall Phillip's book.
I'm not sure who you're addressing here.
Oh, I forgot. There's two mics. Okay, I'll call you Mike on top, and you're Michael. Okay, so Michael, we'll start with you.
First, let me say it's a pleasure to meet everybody. Okay, I want to say that, and I wish everybody well in their future. You know, on Oracle Radio, I'm looking forward also to possibly trying to create something, and maybe who knows, we'll be able to share some platforms together in the future. But nevertheless, how best to direct a lot of what we know. You know, I talk about a lot of things on America Disclosing, Uncensored, and America in Crisis, you know, for years now that kind of give us the pieces of the puzzle of the whole big picture. And I don't think it just started with 9/11. I think it started with Pearl Harbor. But we'll leave that part of the picture out of the equation for now, because I don't think we'll have time to get into all that. But I think there's a lot of conspiracy. But where there is military technology that exceeds what we think we know of what it is, they can get away with that possibility because it's confusion and divide, and it puts us in a place of confusion. And that's where they like to keep us. So when you think of the facts that technology could not have been possible to pull this off, I can assure you that is not true. Even John Lear, I had a couple conversations and some mail with him. That's why I get Jim Goodall on at times. We kind of know each other, and in a way, not real formally, but you know, he brought out something that was really fascinating on molecular disassociation of molecule weaponries, which is kind of like directional weaponry. So sorry for the big words. I can't even pronounce them right half of the time. But the truth of the matter is when you have technologies that exceed things, and we know about the whereabouts of information through science, the burning of fuels 1500, the starting of melting at 2750. Well, this building disintegrated. It was over 5,000. Cars had flat tires, rubber were melted, front bumpers were melted. Trump even did a little type of interview with somebody where he said, I was in the basement of the building, and it was more than anything that had to do with the plane. There were explosions, and he visually saw it. So when we get into things like this, we are creating our facts, not conspiracies. And there's a lot of them here. We can stretch all over the board in my viewpoint of how to look at it, but it doesn't mean I'm going to be actually 100% correct. But I think I'm pretty much in the 90s percentile range of what we do know. We had the capability of remote controlling planes. So if you take out the equation, the best pilots in the world said anybody that just takes over a plane is not going to be able to crash them in. And you don't think the GPS coordinates were available? They were in the military. They could direct something to anywhere they want, and they didn't need a pilot to do it. And it's amazing when we find out later that there are passports and driver's licenses and so forth. And then we have a man of the country, and I actually have the recording where he addressed the United States of America, who came over here because of the war that came to follow from all this, and called them out and said, why are these people alive in our country? And you're saying they're dead, and they were in these in the plane operations of this hostile takeover in the air. So, you know, you get into all these scenarios, and it really does make you wonder. So thermites probably with sulfurics was added, which could basically destroy metal, the fabric of metal, and the structure of metal. They, you know, in many ways, and I don't want to take anything from anybody else's thought and be the first to say it, but these look like they were controlled without a doubt. Every issue and scenario. Then you have the BBC. 7 minutes prior to Building 7 falling, they make the announcement that Building 7 fell. And it was 7 minutes prior to that happening. It didn't fall, I believe, till 5:20, and at 5:13 they made that announcement. So,
Right.
here we are with thousands of people, and one of that died due to a war, due to this catastrophic event that we had to deal with. One of the saddest parts that people don't really get into is how many became sick from
Mhm.
all the contaminants
Yeah.
in the
Yeah,
air as well,
all
because
the
that
people
far
died.
exceeds the number of how many actually died at the site.
Oh, there has to be more than 3,000 now with all the people who died from all the toxins from the
More
building.
than double that number, correct. So I'll just leave it at that to try to open up a page where people can try to want to get in. If you want me to continue go deep and you want me to, I can give you that too. But I would like for everybody to be able to
Yeah. Okay, what
have
we're
their
gonna
moment.
do is I'm gonna show a clip. You guys can just butt in whenever you feel like after the clips, and whoever wants to go next, so we can get these clips in that Rebecca intended. And I want to thank you again, Rebecca. So we'll go to the first clip.
We have some claims. Just stay quiet and you'll be okay. We're returning to the airport.
And who's trying to call me here? American 11, are you trying to call?
Nobody move. Everything will be okay. If you try to make any move, you'll endanger yourself and the airplane. Just stay quiet.
Whoever wants to jump in.
That radio transmission can be coming from anywhere, just like the phone calls that were made from the planes.
Exactly.
Okay. I mean, so theoretically, when you
Richard.
start to look at this, that's where I'm at with that. And let's not forget what may have caused and brought all 9/11 to occur. And why did the digits 9/11 come as they did as an emergency hotline, as and when the time that they did too? So, a lot of things are pretty much laid out. Even to further mention, an album cover that came out a couple years prior by a band called the Coup. And what was it? The Twin Towers imploding exactly the way the picture looked on the television.
Exactly.
Yeah, the synchronicities are numerous when you have all of that stuff that went on, especially with 9/11 and the aftermath that followed, and even things before. When you talk about modern day prophecy or whatever you want to call it, but with to your point, Michael, about that radio transmission, you're right. That can come from anywhere, because look, we're doing it now. We're doing it now. None of us are in the same room. We can put our recordings and anything everywhere. It's a part of a radio station. Everybody here has the tool to butt in on the radio station and do that. That doesn't necessarily mean that we're in a studio or we're in the plane, right? It doesn't mean that at all. So, this country loves to do things over here. Hey, look at me, and I'm actually doing what I'm doing right here. You know what I mean? We love that game. We love showing, distraction and then doing what we're doing on the backside. With the transmissions and everything that happened, you're right. I heard about that as well, about the announcements, of the tower going down before it happened. It would have to take that level of orchestration to pull something like this off, especially with television, especially with, the modern day technology the way it was. It would be a tremendous feat to do. I'm not saying it's impossible. I'm saying if you have everybody working on the same page, look at us. We're all around the United States. We're all doing this right here, right now at this time, and nobody's in the same room as each other. I'm saying if you have the proper organization, you can pull something like this off in front of everybody in plain sight.
Definitely. Richard, why don't you tell everybody where you're from? What's your show?
Stay off my lawn.
There you go.
And I work with Mike. He tolerates me every week. We have fun laughing at each other's mistakes, but I went over stuff and I thought I had it, and I was sorry I'm late getting into this.
Okay, I had problems with my
Southern Idaho.
My mic. Oh, Idaho. Okay.
Isn't technology a wonderful thing?
Yes, it's a lovely thing. It's
Richard, where were you on that morning?
I at the time was living in just outside of Portland, Oregon. I used to be an industrial laundry routeman. If you don't know what that is, it's your local mechanic shop, all their uniforms, towels, restaurants with their linens, all that kind of stuff. So I was up early and I was watching Fox and Friends, I think it was on. I usually had that on while I was putting my lunch stuff in my lunchbox and getting ready to leave at about 5 in the morning. So I saw the first plane hit and I went, oh my Lord, this is just horrible. Watch for a little bit. And it's like, I got to get going. It wasn't a super heavy day, but I needed to get moving. And I only lived 3.5 miles from our depot where the route trucks and stuff were. I was very close. And between the time I saw it, left the house and got to the depot, the second plane had already hit. And it's like, what? No, they're talking about the first one. No. All of my customers that day, it was about an hour to my first stop, had out of town stuff, and didn't matter what place I went to, the TVs were on. If they had any kind of a TV anywhere, break rooms, everybody was in a break room. So everybody was watching it all day long. It didn't matter what time of day it was. So it affected everyone. And it's something that, the old, well, where were you? I'll never forget how everybody was essentially had the same mindset and the same feelings all day. It was just disbelief. So,
Rebecca, why don't you play the clip number 2 when Richard's done?
So it hits me as I'm standing there next to the president to the left that the president's the only one that doesn't know the second plane has hit the building.
I had to deliver a message that the president didn't expect to hear and was almost unbelievable. But it also literally was the message he had to hear, whether he wanted to or not.
Andy Card comes up to behind me and says, second plane has hit the second tower, America's under attack.
I don't know, his face looks, it's authentic.
And I'm watching a child read. And then I see the press in the back of the room beginning to get the same message I just got. And I could see the horror etched on the face of the news people who had just gotten the same news. During a crisis, it's really important to set a tone and not to panic. And so I waited for the appropriate moment to leave the classroom. I didn't want to do anything dramatic. I didn't want to, lurch out of the chair and scare the classroom full of children. And so I waited.
Try it again. Get ready for the beginning of that sentence. Get ready.
This is key.
I was studying him intently, and his mouth was kind of drawn and tight, and there was almost for just a brief moment, sort of a startled look in his eyes, and also a weightiness to him, if you will. I could tell he was really focused on trying to get through that event.
You're literally seeing the mindset of the President of the United States play out on TV. Everything about what he thought he was about as a president is changing right in front of you.
So
I can't say I'm not the biggest W fan in any way, shape, or form, but I will say that I think if that was all a surprise to him, which it very well could be, then I think a certain amount of stoicism would have been the right path, and that's what he did. I think I would have reacted the same way, and I would hope.
Yeah,
I would even venture to say, conspiracy or not, if it happened in the way we were told, or it was a conspiracy behind it, I'll venture to say that he had no idea.
Yeah.
This was plausible deniability. If I don't tell the president, he can't know what we're doing. Mm-hmm. So I think that comes into play a little bit here too, that whether it was inside or outside, he had no clue. And I think what you're seeing there is authentic. We've seen W at his best and his worst. He can't act that good.
Yeah,
right?
that look
Yeah,
was
true. Yeah.
It was a good look. I think he was authentic. I don't think I believe I've been doing a lot of research on this for the last couple of days. When I stumbled upon that Mason Phillips, is it Madison? Is it Mason Phillips? Madison Phillips. But I read about his story. Now I'm just going to read it real quick. This is what ChatGPT, and I'm dealing with ChatGPT. Everybody's doing him. I saw Alex Jones was having conversations with Chat. So now Chat says he's the author of the Bamboozle 9/11 War on Terror. That was Marshall Phillips, excuse me. He believed that the official narrative surrounding 9/11 attack was a cover-up. And he argued that the attacks were not the work of Al-Qaeda alone, but rather involved in high-ranking officials in the CIA, the United States intelligence. We know that's the CIA. His theory suggested that the U.S. government and a military-industrial complex had a role in orchestrating the whole attack, at least allowing them to happen to justify the Middle East and erosion of the civil liberties under the guise of national security. And he goes on to say, this is Chat saying, Phillips pointed to inconsistencies in the government's account of 9/11, the collapse of the World Trade Center Building 7, like Michael was talking about, and the actions of the U.S. military on the day of the attacks. He also linked the attacks to the broader agenda, including control over the oil sources in the Middle East, reshaping landscape and expanding U.S. influences. And it goes on to say that he was apparently, in 2014, there was a whole scenario. There's a docudrama talking about this, and I watched it. It was it was bad. It wasn't the greatest film. The acting wasn't the greatest, but the story was, because the news said that he committed suicide because he was upset about his marriage and his estranged wife. And it said that he killed his 2 kids while they were sleeping, went and killed his dog, and then killed himself. But the consistencies didn't measure up. And the neighbors, they interviewed all the neighbors, and the neighbors said that he was afraid of his life. There was people going around the neighborhood, and the neighbors said that they'd called the police 18 hours later. They came after they called 3 times, 18 hours later. And he said it wasn't the regular police. It was like, they had antennas on their, car. And so the theory was, according to Alex Jones and other, conspiracy enthusiasts, that he was murdered and that the whole administration had something to do with it. Now, I don't know. To me, I watched it. I was like, wow. I'm like looking at this guy's book, and then I found him on Facebook, and then I found this group saying justice for Marshall. And I go, what? It totally blew my mind, because I didn't hear about it, because I wasn't into all that, all this then. So what do you guys think?
Interesting. So like, I study nervousness. I'm a nervous person. I'm a reader. I've been on shows with people that I can either get a good vibe or a bad vibe, or I get caught on the fence to where is what they're telling me believable. And sometimes the hardest things to believe are the stories that are most sci-fi-ic. So Dick, the handler Cheney, and George Sr. were very, very close friends.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to suggest to everybody, and my theory of this is they all knew. And the true leader of the country was not Baby Bush. It was the father. Before the father, it was Prescott.
Mm-hmm.
And Wilner, who had inside security details that canceled them. Does anybody know who Wilner Bush is? Okay, well, there is a such person. He is a Bush, and he was also involved in these buildings by removing dogs and leaving the buildings vacant and vans coming in and working for 2.5 weeks prior to this event. And then you had Donald Rumsfeld on 9/10 make his announcement, which, America at that point was floored. The eyes started to open that $2.3 trillion could not be accounted for. And suddenly 9/11 became, a system of the following day. Was that part of a scenario of who was coming forth trying to just enlighten us to the savagery that we deal with in the deep state community of the military and presidents and the White House administrations and more? We see that whole platform, at work. We've watched it, in different facets come forth. But if I told you I had a picture of the guy that they so-called killed with people of importance, you may not want to believe it, but I can produce that picture, and it's not a CGI picture. It's a factual picture. And I would say if I shared it to any one of you and it made Facebook, you would be gone instantly. There are certain things out there that they know exist. And if we were to share them, because it's happened to me, I've done things where I shared informations of facts, or for us to at least keep an open mind to the facts of what we need to research more on. And they do come directly at us. They know the pinpoints of the narratives of what they need to protect. We live in a country where freedom has never been free. Slavery has been part of a scenario of, from cradle to grave, of an indoctrination of how we are, in their minds, realistically looked upon as animals. And they utilize these things against us. But to stick to the guns on the 9/11 things here, I'll play something for you that maybe the public doesn't know. I'm not going to share screen. I'm just going to go to, I'm hoping it's going to work. That's part of the scenario of what these children were talking about prior to the event occurring. All right, leaving app. Let me just get through this real quick because I want it to come through for you guys. Somebody explain this to me.
Get ready to read this word the fast way. Get ready. Yes. Sound it out. Get ready. Sound it out. Get ready. What word? Yes. Get. Boys and girls, sound this word out. Get ready. What word?
Steel. Hit steel.
These words the fast way. Get ready. Yes, plane.
Hit steel plane right in front of him as he's being told this. Children being taught how to pronunciate exactly what was forthcoming and what had just occurred.
Wait, this is during.
This is exactly what they cut out that you didn't have on your video. I'll be more than happy to send it to you, Jenny.
Yeah, that's. Why would they tell kids to do that for one?
Yes, a very amazing scenario of an event where they were teaching that exact hypothetical moment within our time frame and this paradox of exactly what he would be faced with. And, I did see a nervousness on him. And I don't know if it was because he knew exactly what was going to happen. I'm not in his mind. I'm not in his mindset. And as we see and as we learn, it's simply like how Tom said it. We can all be here, even though we're worlds apart. There were people right next to him telling him things. But look, we know we have crisis actors, don't we? They've monetized and got infiltrated in every system of education and more. And they utilize scenarios like this as a control purpose to how they carry out things. And so I think that was really important. As far as this man and what you're discussing there, yes, I'm aware of the story and so forth. And, my heart goes out to the loss of the families and whatever the truth is behind it. I be honest, I never really looked into it deeply, but I was aware of it. But some of the things that I think that I have researched surface in a different way and bring a different type of language of facts, not conspiracy, because I'm probably one of the biggest conspiracy terrorists on the earth, on the planet. I really know I'm targeted in many ways. And I keep going, I keep fighting, as you guys all are, by trying to bring the facts of the truth forward. Ground Zero is something that we have now labeled in America that they use, that we use in many different terminologies. The oil, I believe, was a factor, and I'm only mentioning it because that was brought up of, something they wanted to control. And that's a fact. I actually have a little, but again, I could get into these clips and these conversations where people in Washington, Senate, and Congress were being addressed by people of other countries coming here and saying, why is our people alive? And you're saying that they, committed this horrific act. We did not do it. And they went there and just pumped the oil out without meters. They owe nobody nothing. But I think it was even a little bit bigger. There was word that always came out through the CIA and the DOJ that not only there was a significance as to why this had to be done because of the bloodlines, there was something found. And they wanted their hands on it. And when you look at and narrate the picture of who owns all the museums and the artifacts of the world, it all goes back to a representation of the money, the elite, the bloodlines, the Rockefellers, the Rothschilds, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But it's a factual fact. So what did they find? What did they want? We know they were emptying out places of importance. They were taking things and just, labeling themselves to the ownerships of them. But you do have people in places in this country that we're talking about, and I don't want to get real specific, that they found it necessary for more than one reason, but they had to create the purpose, but also keep something else under the table, hushed. And there were things and objects that they wanted their hands on.
Richard, you're quiet. What do you think about that? Put you on the spot.
Well, it just was reminding me of Building 7 never seems to be talked about. It's not in anything anywhere. And that's one of the things where what was going on there, it was nowhere close to the other ones. It should not have, even when they collapsed, it had nothing to do with. And yet, how did that building go down? What, there was another building? I didn't even know there was another building that went down for years. And back then, if you would have been talking about the CIA being involved with nefarious activities and such, I'd have went, nah, I really don't think so. But with all that's gone on in the last 3.5 years, okay, my mind's changed now. There's just been too much evidence and too many things that, we don't want you to know about that, so we're canceling this part of, or you can't say that. It's like, what? Wait a minute. Last I saw, our Constitution didn't change. So yeah, it's the things that they want out. And how come Building 7 went down and all of a sudden there was money?
Did they give a reason why?
Disappeared. What?
Did they give a reason, Richard? Did they give a reason?
There's been lots of them as to why. Well, it just went down. Yeah, with the others when they went down. That's what. Really, where it was located, I don't know how that happened because it was nothing that got anywhere close to it. So all of the explanations, if you will, those that try to tell you this is what happened, there's been several and none of them. No, they don't wash. So there's too many of us that have a little bit of gray matter up here that goes, it's not right.
Maybe we need to look into the fact of who owned these 3 buildings and the insurance policies that were taking out on them that included terrorism, because there was a very close relationship to the people that and names that I've already mentioned. And he was paid really, really well. Went to court, won, and even got twice the amount of money that they were asking for by the court. So, it pays to have good friends. But Dick Cheney was a handler as to how the White House was being run and guiding this young Bush representative that we had as to how things would run in the country and the preparations to the future of how we would move forth. And you just mentioned and put a nail right in the coffin on the mall. We've witnessed this all very recently. Their agenda has started way long time ago. And they have an outlook and an outreach for where and what they want the United States to become. And when you ask yourself, or say or mention the fact that we have a constitution. I say to you, do we really? Because we were sold out so long ago under a corporation that we were led to believe that the existence was there. And they cushioned it by keeping a blanket over everything that they were doing. But while doing it, they took the Constitution and tore it up into pieces, into shreds, as they are doing right now in current times in front of us. And, but again, it goes back to these other scenarios of who owned them and why weren't they there on these particular days. It brings me back to the fact of the Titanic and when they wanted to vote the Fed in, and all the Rockefellers and the Rothschilds and a few other names who were coming to America to take a vote on this starting to become a current new policy and way for the new America of the New World Order, as written in the book through Hitler in 1941, the New World Order. These were the prophecies of where they were going and the releases of the information, because the only way they had to get to their constituents was through writings, mail carriers, and it was very difficult to get things to and protect them. So they would do things with a different objective of mindset as to how they would share information between all their constituents who were all involved, the 3313 and more. And this is what we're seeing surrounding a lot of this. I even have a video where 2 to 3 minutes after it came across the police scanner, a good news journalist showed up at the Pentagon looking for this plane, and there was no plane to be found. And they scrubbed that, but I also have that. I keep that on a special file. Something else I can share to you, John. And I think as we talk about these things, the informations are not just about what happened to a man in the book, but the overall picture of everything and the witness testimonies that we have. The firemen saying, boom, 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 boom. Why would they say it if they didn't hear it? And why was it 150 different testimonies of the same things? Something happened much greater than a lot of people may want to actually agree with. But in fact, it did happen. And it's a mess everywhere. And there's money tied into things everywhere and things that make no sense anywhere of any place of it all. And why under military guard, FBI, and police did they have to dismantle the remainders of that building and no investigation to ever take place upon it? Because, look, in Bush's own words, when the bombs were used, and I have that video too, he slipped up. And he made a statement of truth to the public. And you know what? If you're not listening and you're not paying attention the way I do, or the way, these things have been said, these things have been out there. But what happened to all the remnants of this building? The steel wasn't allowed to be examined by nobody. And where did it get shipped to? China. So you have all these scenarios of everything. And don't forget the fact what Donald Trump said. These buildings should have never fell. Not in their design, not in the structure of their design. So their integrity was built with steel around the internal center of each tower of 110 stories, all steel. And then you had the outer facade with heavier duty steel. And this network of steel within steel just doesn't evaporate into thin air. So I have, in my mind, come to the conclusion we were attacked by our own government inside the United States. And I will not change my mind on those facts. But again, you have to understand where I have been, who I have talked to, and the years that I've looked into this, I have a different source of energy and facts and videos and more. And when you have that, it opens up a different type of scenario of how to look at it. And I think that's part of why we're all going into this new awakening system that we are. And I don't call that a consciousness awakening. And I love people who are star seeds and do all that. But in my mind, of what that stands for and truly means is the fact is we as humans are, in fact, like the energy of everything, even a computer, because we act as one, we work as one, we are made up of the same minerals and water and content that we develop these technologies from. And when you allow information to flow to you and you accept it, and you analyze it, you digest it, you don't wash, rinse, repeat, and regurgitate it, you will then be able to format a different knowledge of how you are ascending. And we are ascending by knowledge. And if you go back to the most ancient of times and you talk about Adam and Eve, what was really the apple? Knowledge. Do not share the knowledge.
Don't share it.
Yeah.
Rebecca, do you think you can play number 3? We're going to go out of, no, let's do number 4. We're going to go out of order. She's still there.
You're right. Oh my God, you saved my life. You saved my life. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Oh my God.
It's tough.
Yeah, you heard a lot of emotion in that voice, right? And that video reminds me right there, if anybody's ever seen the movie Cloverfield, that's almost very similar to what happened in that one with the people walking outside of the shop, but I digress. When you have that and the building went down in the smoke and people saving each other, you know, it warms the heart to think, you know, there are people looking out for you, you know, especially in this world, it's so divisive and things like that. But the terror in the voice, the raw emotion that the woman had, you know, that speaks to a lot of the horror that was there at Ground Zero in New York City on that day, and other places, you know, other places. Because if you remember, we didn't know if this was it. We didn't know if that was only what was going to happen. School, Jenny, you went and picked up children at school.
Yeah, but kicked my
Other
back
schools
up.
closed. Other schools let their kids out early. You know, you didn't know. Major cities all let their kids out. You know, work was closed down. You didn't know if that was it, or were there more things coming. I believe that there were other foiled, you know what I mean, foiled plans, but you know, we will never know the extent of what could happen. You know, we've went in over this panel over the last 45 minutes about the why. And I think we need to think about the how. Was this ourselves, you know, doing it, or did we attack ourselves by standing down? And that's what the book covered a little bit there too, was, you know, did we stand down and let this happen? Because one of the things that he wrote in his book, The Big Bamboozle, was, look, we all know that these terrorists are trained on American soil, right? We all know that they were in schools in California, Florida, and Arizona, I think. Could we have stopped this, or did we look the other way to provide an enemy to further interest? You know what I mean? I think the how is also as important as the why.
Yeah.
Yeah, if this was truly something from Al Qaeda or whoever, and this is just one scenario, I do believe that we set ourselves up for this, and I've thought this for a long, long time. That when Clinton was in office, he did everything he could to balance the budget. I give him credit for that. But the thing is, he dismantled a lot of the military when he did that, and when he did that, he kind of made us probably at our weakest point before World War II militarily. So I knew a lot of guys that were, because I'm ex-military, I knew a lot of guys that had to PCS because they closed their bases, and they got that, you know, everything kind of got combined, and people kind of, you know, didn't get their re-enlistment paperwork and the whole thing. So he balanced the budget, but we kind of like, hey, you know, this is our weak underbelly. Come and get us if we want. And they knew that Bush was a Republican. Notoriously, Republicans are more pro-military, building up the military, has been in the past. So I think they saw an opportunity. And if that it nets, look, the government has gone out of their way to lie to us and tell us not, or tell us misinformation, to use their own word. You know, you look back at JFK assassination, you look at Roswell, you look at the moon landing. There's all these questions that are coming up now that we never really thought about. Everybody could just kind of like, well, you know, that they said it happened this way, so it had to have. So I think we're in a different place right now, and I think that, you know, I don't think any of us can really know. But I do think that we did set ourselves up if that was the scenario that played out.
We have a Sebastian. Hi.
Yeah, very good friend of the network, Sebastian.
Yeah, thanks for the compliment. It does help, and it's great. Did you see that? He was talking about the great show. It does appear that the very complex and portable air defense was missing on 9/11. Very sad. Yes, very sad.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, what happened when you asked that, and that's brought up? What happened to the radar systems? We had the most sophisticated. We could take down a UFO, as Stephen Greer has brought to the to the light and forefront of things, as well as Stanton Friedman, Linda Moulton Howe. When we excurge upon some of the great lecturers and speakers and MCs that put on these symposiums and conferences, we know we have this. Where was our military? Where was our protections? We didn't use them. We didn't have them. Who told them to stand down?
Yes.
I mean, these are the points of facts that really need to be spoken about more, even though everything has importance to it. When I listened to that video that was just played, it sounded to me more like a narration of CGI and Halloween. I'm only saying what my gut feeling is when I hear something like that. Not to say I can prove anything one way or another. And respectively, if that's fact and truth, my most humble apologies and prayers to you. I'm happy that you're alive. But the point is, the way I hear it and see it, it doesn't correlate with the type of facts that we need to be looking for to get further in this investigation as citizen journalists as we are. Maybe some of us are. But that's why I deep dive. That's why I have this excitement in my, I get this adrenaline rush of how to teach and be the gatekeeper of information the best I can. And I don't ask anybody to really agree with me, but I say, look, when you look at the facts and the research, if you truly do deep dive it, you may find even better than what I have. And that is what makes us all special. So I'm happy to really be a part of this panel today, and you guys, inviting me on to do this and share with it. But, can I just say one thing, Jen?
Sure.
This young lady at the top, Nicole, how are you, dear?
I'm hanging in there. How about yourself?
I'm good. Do you have any thoughts on what is being conversated right now?
It's a lot to sink in. There's a lot of emotions in that video. I agree. There's emotion, and it makes you realize in time like these, really does bring us all together as people. So there's some good things that come out of all this, I think.
I love your spirit energy. I really do. Thank you for saying that. But I felt like she was alone. I needed to do that. I apologize.
No worries. I love listening to y'all. So.
Yeah, just butt in whenever you want, Nicole. It's kind of hard when you got these guys that like to talk.
I'm gonna shut up.
Well, we're gonna see one more clip. Go. Sorry, Tom. What did you say, darling?
No, I think that's why, I appreciate what Michael said, because that's why we all have a platform. And that's why we all are doing what we're doing. I don't think any one of us is up saying you have to listen to me. I'm right. We're encouraging people to look in for themselves. We're encouraging people to think for themselves, because outside's telling you how to think. No, we're going to be the ones to tell you what, think for yourself. You can agree with me and you can disagree with me, and I'm still going to have a conversation with you. Let's start thinking for ourselves.
It's a sad shame, but there's a lot of people that don't think for themselves. They have to listen. The government thinks they know. The government, I have to listen to the government says.
Yeah, we were talking about Bush, and that's the first time I ever heard the words "New World Order."
Yep.
Really? You didn't watch wrestling?
Went,
I'm a wrestling fan, so I knew back in '96.
Not so much political speak anymore.
New World Order. Yes, I hear
it was everywhere.
Hulk Hogan had it on his forehead every week.
Yeah, he did.
Yeah. Gen X, Gen Y, Gen Z. I mean, were they really the psychic of the future? Was this man who owned this company orchestrating all of this? No. I mean, there were the white hats, there were the black hats, there were sides of the story.
It's elite, New World Order. That's what they want, is a New World Order. And I had the first time I heard it was on Alex Jones. I've been listening to Alex Jones. I love Alex Jones. My son turned me on him years ago. I'm like, I'm sorry. A lot of people don't like him.
He's a lot to take, especially when you're in front of him.
Yeah.
I'll just in a good way. In a good way.
Yeah. But we're going to play the last clip because we'll end it with that one, and we'll just put our, thoughts on that because it's the survivors.
And the fire door on 76 was locked.
Oh. Anthony, let's get the fuck out of here.
I'm ready, man.
Yep.
Wow.
That's to think that somebody like our government would do something like that makes me want to throw up. But
I know. Props on that man for getting that out there, getting that information out there. You know what I mean? A very, I enjoy that. Call it out. Call it out because they feed on the quietness of us. They feed on not talking. They feed on us isolationists. They feed on all of it. For him to go and say, the fire door on 76 was locked, it could have been simply benign. It could have been somebody who had it locked, but it could also signify that there was something else more at play here. And for him to actually made it out and say that he did his American duty by passing information, just like Michael was saying, passing the information around, allowing people to hear it, and getting out there. And he was right in the middle of it. I mean, you saw all the dust and everything. He owed it to the people that didn't make it out of that building. Because if 76 was locked, how many others were locked?
Many.
Yeah.
Many.
That kills me is the people that jumped.
I know, that's awful.
That was to think that.
I remember seeing that afterwards on the TV. How some of them were late and to work, and that actually saved them because they were late.
Or
they
missed their
took
flight
the
or
detour.
whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah. You have those. But for those, biggest one that I know about is the creator Family Guy, Seth MacFarlane. He was late and missed his flight. He was hungover. He would have been on that plane as well. And he's the most famous one that I know. But, there's always standby. So when you say the people that missed the plane, how many people shouldn't have been on the plane but were because they got a seat on there. That's the sad part too.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it changed a lot. It changed how I looked. I used to go a lot of different places, and I hate the thought of getting on an airplane or, I stay away from crowds as much as I can. I don't like it. I mean, that's what happened. I mean, it messed up a lot of people.
Yeah, you're right.
It messed up a lot of people.
The galleries, the streets closing, dinner on the street. I've seen a lot, especially post COVID. And then you have people running their cars into them. You know what I mean? You had the protest ones, but there's been like street fairs, like food festivals or beer festivals, whatever it might be. And even being out there, you don't maybe not actively think about it, but it will creep in like, oh man, there's not a block at the one entrance. Somebody could have.
Where's the exit signs? It's
something.
like
It's sad.
It is sad. I mean, 23 years later, I still don't want to do some things. And I know that's, crazy. My son wanted to go to the air show up here in Latrobe. I didn't want to go because you don't know,
You never know.
it's a great, I don't know. I know that's
how fear mongering works because that means that you are awake. You're watching, you're protecting. You're analyzing situations on how to walk through the broken glass of life, and because we're all walking on it. But I make decisions the same way as you do. Maybe I'm going to go this way instead of this way. And then we get angry and say, and this has probably happened to probably a majority of us here sitting here. You get caught behind traffic for whatever reason. I'm going to be late for the kids' party again. And then you get up the road and see a bunch of mangled cars. And
there's a reason.
So there's a reason that synchronicities are, and maybe we don't understand everything, but as long as we keep open-minded and analyze everything the best we can and protect ourselves, because we're in a world now where protected, more than just protect the children for the future, but protect even ourselves in our elder years as we're approaching them. And all of us are here because we want betterment, and we don't agree with this objective of how life has gone and how it's been. And that's, and again, reflecting back to a comment that I made, like, what are these documents that we have that represent America? They were pieces of paper that were just trampled on for the powers and elites to endorse more permits and licensing and structure about them creating the money and generating it for the influences of their own wealth and riches while we became poorer. You know, it was a big example of that last night of, Carmela egging on Trump and all his, and I don't want to get into that, but I mean, when you watch the direction of what she took in that debate, it wasn't about a healthy debate of political policies and betterments for the future. It was about every stab and jab she could create for him. And that's what they do to us.
Yeah.
And what does that do to us in our frame of mind?
See, my take on the debate last night, real quick, was that I think that the only people that are have not made up their mind is probably maybe at the most 2 to 5% of the population. Everybody is either pro-Trump, anti-Trump, whatever. But I think that she was kind of gearing towards the low information, ignorant voter, people who don't know what the truth and the lies are. And it's very similar to the conversation we're having here. It's like, so if she throws out a lie, if she throws it out in a kind, almost calm manner, you might, and I tried to zoom out while I watched it. I tried to zoom out a 30,000 foot view with this and go, if I didn't know that she was lying through her teeth, I'd be like, Kamala had a great debate.
Yeah.
And even though that she didn't get fact checked on any of the things that she
nothing.
So,
ABC, no.
That's
another story.
That's the media, though, is what I'm saying. The media is complicit with the government, and we're never going to get the whole story on anything.
No, we won't. We won't. No, we just have to use our own senses and
Hey,
see what
can
the
I
truth
can
is.
I play one more thing that I think will touch the hearts of all America, and I call it a documentary that I did the day after 9/11, and I think it's important, if you have a few minutes, just to hear some of this commentary. Can we do that?
Yeah, sure. Just for a few minutes, because we're only on for an hour.
Is that it? I thought you had more control over the network.
No, I could have. Asked Tom. He's the boss.
Oh yeah, no, we're good. Go ahead.
2 blocks south of the World Trade Center. 2 blocks south. I think it's about 2 blocks south of the World Trade Center. What were you doing there? Believe it or not, I was actually meeting a deputy commissioner of the TLC, which is the Taxi and Limousine Commissioner, to get a job as an instructor to teach the 80-hour course for taxis. And it just was amazing. Everybody was looking up, and I didn't at first see what it was. And then I looked up, and I saw what looked like a huge hole in the World Trade Center. And I was trained as a paramedic. I'm not currently licensed, but I started walking towards, I get up Greenwich Street towards the World Trade Center, and I just saw arms and legs and pieces of bodies and just a lot of really bad stuff. And I just put on my latex gloves, and I walked up, and I got to the front door, and there's this guy from FEMA. That's like the Federal Emergency Management Agency. And I said, listen, I'm not licensed, but I'm trained as a paramedic. And he's just said, well, that doesn't matter now. Come on in. And so we went in, and we went under the basement to the other side of the building, and basically what we were doing was people were coming down the stairs. The fire department was arriving in groups, and they were going up the stairs, and there was a group of us, and what was happening was people were leaving out the exits, and they were getting killed by debris that was falling. And so what we would do is we would corral people in groups of 50 or 100, and we'd go out the doors ourselves, and we'd look for debris, and we tell them go, and they'd run out in groups, and we just did that maybe 15 or 20 times when the second plane hit. And at that point, I just started cursing, and I turned to this FBI agent, and I just said, where's the air support? I mean, aren't we supposed to be prepared for this? And guys from the bomb squad came in, and I said, are we looking for secondaries? Because my first thought was that they missed the first time. They're not going to miss this time. They're definitely going to bring it down. And my thoughts were that the planes were just a distraction. They probably had bombs actually, in the garage or whatever again, and that's what their main intention was. Just during a lull in the people coming out, I turned to this guy, one of the FBI agents that was there, and I looked him in the eyes and I said, these things are going to come down, don't you? And he looked at me and he said, yeah, they are. And none of the federal agents that were there made any attempt to leave, and they just knew the building was going to come down, and they just stayed. And I don't think the firemen, the looks on their faces when they went up the stairs, I don't think they thought they were going to get out either. I think everybody just kind of knew what was happening. We were just trying to get out as many people.
How did you get out?
There was an NYPD captain with intelligence, and he came up to me and he said, "Look, you're paramedic, right?" And I said, "Yeah." And he said, "This is for police. The paramedic triage is on Church and Fulton. That's the very east entrance to the Trade Center." And he says, "Go there and help." I said, "Look, I'll stay with you." And he says, "No, I'll go." And I went down the escalator, went out the door, and I crossed the street, and I came up to the paramedics that were there, and I said, "Listen, you guys need any help?" And they were like, "Are you kidding?" And we started triaging people, and just then, I couldn't have been out the door 5 minutes. There was this explosion, and I looked up, and it was falling on us. The whole thing was just coming down on us, and we all ran. I ran east about a block, and then I kind of went to my right, and I hid behind some pillars when it came down, and it was like a huge, the biggest pipe bomb in history, because all the glass and all the metal just kind of just formed shrapnel, and just about everybody that I was running with that didn't make the right, I think they just all got killed. There were cars exploding. And I just was happy to be alive at that point. And then the cloud of dust came, and I covered my face with my jacket. And I just knew it was a chemical weapon, because, that was our thought. And one of the federal agents in the building said that they were expecting chemicals. They didn't expect any kind of plane or whatever. And I just remembered from training that you breathe in, and then you can't breathe out, and that's like the last thing that happens. And every breath I took, I was waiting to not be able to breathe out. And I crawled on my hands and knees, and I crawled over people that were dead. And I guess I hit a wall or something, and I felt with my hand, and I felt glass, and I was pushing on the glass as I moved, and I ended up in a revolving door. And I guess I was over by Chase Bank or something, and I went in. There was a guy from FEMA there, and we dialed the White House. And there was no answer. It was on answering service, and we just looked at each other and said, "I don't think that's ever happened before." And then somebody told us the Pentagon was hit, and we thought the White House had been hit. And there were a lot of reports. Camp David was hit. Everybody was saying everything was hit, and we really thought we were in trouble. And I have my girlfriend, and she works at NYU Hospital, and she's not medically trained, but she works there. And I told her, from training, I also knew that hospitals could be secondary targets. I said, "Leave." My mom's at an 86 in Park. I said, "Just walk, and I'll meet you over there. Just walk. Stay away from major buildings. Don't go near Grand Central, Penn Station, especially not the UN, and just walk up." And some of the paramedics were going to go back out and help after the first building fell. And I said, "Look, just stay here. It's two separate planes, two separate buildings. One of them fell. The second one's going to fall. If you go out there, you're going to get killed." And we waited, and then the second one fell. And then we called out, and we triaged who we could. We helped who we could. And then the most beautiful thing in the world is we heard the jets, not the theirs, but our jets, I guess the F-16s or whatever, and we all cheered, because we knew we were safe at that point, because we actually had some kind of air support, and that nothing was going to get near us, And eventually I just started walking north, and I walked all the way to 86th Street. I don't know, there's people, that's maybe 10 miles or something, I don't know. And I just stopped every half a half a mile or so to borrow some duct tape from engineers to tape my shoes because my shoes were falling apart. And then I saw President Bush on TV, and a semblance of calm just kind of came over everybody when we saw the president was alive, and he seemed like he was in the Oval Office. I don't know if he was or not. And just the amount of people, police were taking out water. All their water, they were taking out all their water and just bringing it out. They're bringing out sandwiches. People were bringing coffee and orange juice to people, and it was just, I've never seen.
It goes on, and I appreciate you guys letting me play that because I think there was some definite intel from inside the source, and that has been backed up by other credible stories as well of a different type of magnitude, and you know, in other instances that I have come across information, we had fire, medic, police, and different other three-letter law enforcement agencies there prior to the hit ever taking place. So there was something more vibing in the air, preparations being made. I'll reflect back to the classroom, the children's dialogue that day, you know, the steel plane hit. You know, you can't make these things up when you start connecting the dots, and they point the fingers in the direction where it's no longer a conspiracy. There are facts to represent and back all of our thoughts up. So thank you for letting me play that, because I thought that, you know, the emotions and everything. And this was from a caller the next day on a New York radio station that shared me that part of the radio segment. And I'm happy to share anything with you guys if it takes you further into what you may do into the future, talking about this and more, because I might not be here tomorrow and you will be, and you will be that voice. And the next voice of America can be any one of you. I want to thank everybody for having me on, but now I'm going to leave do some preparations with Brad Olson, who I'm doing a show with.
Okay.
11:30 on the West Coast and 2:30 Eastern Standard Time. And if any of you guys know who Brad is, he is a very informative book author, lecturer, speaker, MC, conference holder, and just a fascinating individual. He's at the top of the creme de la creme, and I love that. I love him as a friend. He has the biggest heart. So thanks for having me on. I appreciate you guys. I applaud all your thoughts and everything too. I really do.
Yes, thank you, Michael.
It was great. So I'm going to thank you everybody for joining me. Mike from Stay Off Your Lawn, don't go nowhere. I have a question for you. But thank you everyone for joining us today and your comments, and make sure you share this link with everybody. And I'll see you next week, and I'll see you on Chasing Prophecy tomorrow with Tom.
All right.
And we'll see you.